Alright guys, as the title of the video says, after spending 1,000 hours playing Throne and Liberty, I'll be real, I've had enough. Right guys, it's time that we be honest with ourselves, but the game barely makes it to mid status, right? It's like a 4.5 out of 10 at best. Why? Well, let's get into it. Now, I'm gonna start off with like the main positive, at least for me, right? And this is the reason why I've even bothered to play the game for as long as I did, right? I burnt out this game like a month or two ago, but I only really played because this was like the first MMO after a while that gave you that essence of community, right? And placed the importance of having that community, and like playing with Hands of Unity is probably like the best experience I've had in recent years in playing an MMO, right? And that's where the positives end for me. Like, that's it. Now the part that everyone wants, the negatives. Alright, let's start off with number one, right? The daily checklist of this game that we need to slog through is mind-numbingly bad, right? Like, the contracts that we have to do have had zero variety in objectives that you gotta do to complete them. Like, no matter what quest hub that you go to, right? And especially now, once Talandre's come out, right? We only have one quest hub to go to anyway, right? At least at the base game, you had 3 different areas where you could choose contracts, right? So you get a different scenery, right? Like you can go to Kanina Village, I think it's called, something tower, like Starlight Tower or something. I forgot the name. And Watcher's Post. You had those 3 areas where you could do contracts, but now you're stuck in Herba Village, and that's it, right? People are saying like I know they said that Talandre like was bigger than the base game, but in all honesty, like I feel like Talandre makes it feel so much smaller, right? I don't know if like you guys have felt that way too, but for me, like Talandre is tiny, no? Like it does not give that sense of, yeah, this is a huge new area, right? Like it's tiny. Like all of this I wouldn't mind if there was a story to it, right? Like dailies aren't anything new in MMOs, like they've existed in World of Warcraft, Guild Wars 2, and all of that stuff. But at least in WoW, the dailies that you did, at least when I did it, like which was all the way back in Wrath of the Lich King, you felt that, doing dailies in Ice Crown, right? It was like you're working towards defeating the Lich King, right? Like you were gathering resources and shit. You were killing the Scourge to weaken the Lich King's army. So there was that story element to it that made it okay to do those dailies. But in Throne and Liberty, it's just like, yeah, go kill 10 pigs or 10 mutant guard dogs or whatever the fuck. Like, okay, sure, surely there's a story behind it, but it's not compelling at all. It's not engaging, it's not interesting. It's just a chore that you have to do to get your blue stones so you can level up your armors. That's literally it. And your Solent, I guess. My bad. I forgot about that one. Right? And then the daily PvE dungeons, right, that we have to do, especially the new dungeons in tier 2, they are laughably easy. Right? Which is crazy since the 2-star dungeons were, in my opinion, were pretty good. They had some element of challenge to it where if you didn't do it, you would wipe. Right? But the new 3-star dungeons, I didn't even look up a guide and we one-shot the bosses. It's crazy to me, right? And the thing is, I know that they nerfed our version, right? But if they gave us the harder version, it would 1,000 times be worse because the rewards that you got in these 3 stars are so bad. Because chances are, right, I think it was like an 84% chance that they would drop tier 1 gear that's been obsolete for the last 3 months. Like, imagine releasing a whole new expansion, bragging about 5 new dungeons, and then you get rewards that you've deleted for the last 3 months. Right? That is asinine behavior to me. Like, what the fuck? And all of this is done by design to milk the players. Like, call me a conspiracy theorist or whatever the fuck, right? But all of this is done by design to make players swipe, and especially the hardcore player base, right? Which brings me on to my next point, which is swiping. Now, I know in my very first video, I said that it wasn't that bad because the later you start, the cheaper everything is, and whales aren't as impactful on their own, which is still true. I still stand by that. But the core progression of the game, the meaningful progression, which is getting new gear and trading it up, is best gained through swiping. And especially right now in tier 2 when these drop rates are so bad, right? So we have a guy in our guild, right? He was level 20 on every single weapon before tier 2 came out, right? So this guy plays the fuck out of this game. He goes to Sorodoma every night to get extra dungeon runs. And he's told me that he hasn't gotten a single tier 2 drop in these dungeons. Like, RNG is RNG, sure, but that... You know what I mean? Like, and it's kind of a weird sentiment to have, especially for an MMO. Because usually, right, like the best time to play an MMO is when a new expansion drops or when new content comes, because you'll be playing with everyone, right? And everyone's going to be doing the same thing. But right now, like for Throne and Liberty, it's not. It's actually in your best interest to not play the game at launch and just go shopping when everything goes on sale a month later. Right? At that point, like Throne and Liberty, for me, it's not a game, it's a shopping mall. Right? You wait for all the content to get unlocked, you wait for all the prices on the auction house for your trait and your gear, you know, to go down in price, which is, we can see it happening live right now. If you go into the auction house, like if you've looked at some items, they've dropped tremendously in price, right? And then you wait for your favorite content creator to tell you what build to make because the meta's been figured out, and then you just follow that. You save yourself the headache of figuring out a build. You save yourself Lucent because everything's cheap, and it's smooth sailing from there, right? Like, it's actually crazy. And with that being said, right, like the game at its foundation is designed to milk players, right? And with those things noted, let's say your class is good for the time being, right? You followed your content creator saying, oh yeah, this is what you build for this class. Boom, you do it. You pop off. You're doing great, right? After you spend like what? Let's say £40, which is like 2,800 Lucent. That's enough to trade out your gear, or at least trade out enough to where you'll be impactful. And then what? You get hit with a nerf. So what do? Especially if you want to remain competitive, right? What do? You re-roll. And when you re-roll, depending on what you re-roll to, depending on your class, you have to retrait the majority, if not all of your gear. So what does that mean? You have to spend more money. Why? Because you probably won't make Lucent because everything is unprofitable, right? We saw that at the end of tier 1, right? And yeah, if you wanna stay competitive, you have to swipe. Sure, the sync system is nice, but the syncing system only copies the level of the armor, not the trait levels themselves, right? So sure, you're saving time because you don't have to grind more growth stones, but you still have to spend money to trait out the new set. Now you combine this with the abysmal drop rates in these new 3-star dungeons, I mean, you have no choice but to swipe. Like, you'll eventually cave in. Or you quit, which is what I'm doing right now, right? Like, sure, you can argue that it's just the start of the game, you know, new content just came out and everything is going to be cheaper. But it's been out in Korea for a little over a year now, I think. And their population isn't doing too hot over there. So, I don't know. And then what happens when tier 3 comes out? The whole cycle continues again. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, like I said, as a casual, it's easy. If you start late, it's easy because the meta is going to be figured out. Your content creator has told you what to build. You know, boom, you just do that. But like I said, if you're in a competitive guild, you know, you pretty much spend a decent amount of time theory crafting builds. I know, like, there's a couple fucking degens in Hands of Unity that have spent, like, have stayed up all night theory crafting builds, right? One of them is playing One Dagger right now as well. And One Dagger is dog shit. So all that theory crafting went down the fucking toilet. So, there you go. Like, in all honesty, the game just feels like an Excel sheet simulation, right? Like you put shit down on an Excel sheet, you press go, and then you watch what it does. Like that's what it felt like playing this game. And the best thing is, skill expression in this game doesn't exist once you found someone, or like once you start fighting someone that's built to counter you. Right? Like, I get like designing it that way makes it so that whales aren't extremely overpowered. Right? But personally, it's boring, lazy, and uninspired game design. That's my take on it. I'm not a game designer, but as someone that plays games, that's fucking shit. Like, now, does it help that I'm playing a dogshit class? Absolutely not. I know I put myself in this position, right? I started coping that this class would be good, but it's not. So, GG. Like, BDO arguably has better balancing than TNL, because a good player can kill someone that's playing the better class, quote unquote, and is outgearing them. A good player can kill that player, right? But in TNL, you can't. Like, bro, someone builds like what? 3k fucking magic evasion, you're cooked, you're done. You're not touching that guy. No matter how dog shit that player is, you're done. You know, it doesn't matter if you're a fucking world-class gamer, you're done. You're not hitting that guy. It's over. Alright, the time gating of content, particularly PvP, is another like big issue that I have with this game. Especially because like the PvP is not even rewarding. And the quality of the PvP that you have in this game isn't even all that good. So the fact that it's time gated just makes it so much worse, because now you have to wait, what, like every other hour to do PvP, and it ends up being shit, right? Maybe I say this because I'm in like a strong guild and we kind of dominate a lot of these fights. But again, like the quality of the PvP in this game is just dog shit in general. And the fact that it's time gated just makes it miserable when you actually do it. Like, especially in Dominion too, right? Like for the casual players that just jump into Dominion every time. In my experience with Dominion, what happens is the other team usually leaves. Like, it's usually, let's say red team is super dominant, that eventually the green team just leaves the world boss. And it just becomes a PvE free farm for the red team, right? Like for the first, what, 10 minutes, it's going to be 99% red team. And then green's numbers just drop over time until they all leave. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, time gating for the content just to devolve into that is fucking trash. Like, sure, you can argue that Nebula Island kind of increases the time that we have to PvP, but again, limited to only 5 hours a week, right? And with Nebula Island, you're gonna be reintroduced to the Zerging issue. And if you're not in a dominant alliance, right? I'm gonna assume that you're fucking miserable in Nebula Island right now. And I say that as someone in a dominant alliance, right? So I feel for you casuals, bro. Like, it's rough for you guys out here. Also, bear in mind, in Korea, when Nebula Island released, I'm pretty sure it was like 7 to 8 hours every week. We got it cut down to 5. And our reward for grinding Nebula is that we can buy 3 extra hours with the tokens that we get in Nebula Island. Like, it's fucked up that they're gimping the intended feature just so they can make us work to have it the way it was. The way it was supposed to be. You know? Like, holy shit, man. You can also pay to win to buy more time in Nebula Island if you want more PvP or if you want to grind more. Because, which is actually, like, doable right now. It's not as pay to win right now, because if you do grind in Nebula, if you have the time to grind in Nebula, or if you manage to find a spot, you can make that loosened back fairly easily, right? Like, I know a couple guildmates have made like 2 to 3k for an hour. But again, we're in a dominant alliance, we can do that. So yeah, for the randoms that are just running around, I mean, there is the peace area as well, but from what I've heard, it's not as profitable. So yeah, and it's gonna be congested. So I don't know, man. Nebula Island doesn't seem too good to me. But I'll never find out. I'm quitting the game. But yeah, speaking of shitty game designs, the map design in this game is atrocious, right? I've already made a video covering how they can improve this, but I doubt they'll ever listen. But the map design in this game, whether it's boss arenas, wargame boonstone maps, they are fucking terrible, right? They're so lazy. I'm pretty sure, like, the meeting or like the brief that they got sent was just like, okay, here's the point that you're gonna fight over. Draw a circle and put the spawn point somewhere on the perimeter of that circle. That's literally it. That's what they did to design these maps. Because it is so bad. Like, take Daigon, for example, right? Daigon introduced pigeon POV gameplay into the game, right? Because Daigon has these walls where players like bows, staffs, whatever, they just AFK up there and wait for people or the boss to come close to the wall so they can shoot you. And the funny thing is, right, the worst thing about this is that, let's say you respawn from point 3 or point 2 or whatever, and you fly down to try and kill these pigeons, chances are you're gonna desync and the game is gonna make you mantle on the jagged edges of the wall and completely fall off, right? And you can't stop it. You can't stop the mantle system from making you fall off, so you get griefed to shit in this map. And for some reason, Daigon, everyone is just so desyncy in Daigon. I don't know what it is. Alright, so here, I flew down from point 3 to jump on this pigeon, right? And for some reason, I'm getting stunned. Right? You see that spinning thing that was falling off on the right? That was the tank that was stunning me. But in my screen, it was just the bow staff. And he finally pops in. After desyncing the whole time, CCing me. Like, why is that in the game? And here's another one where I jump a healer, or I supposedly think I jump a healer, but he's actually not there. Right? You see how the radial arrow is pointing down, saying that he's there, and now it's up. Right? You see it moving? He's gliding down to the wall on the other side of the map. But I could shadow step to him. Like, why? Why is that a thing? Same thing with Pakilo Naru, right? The respawn points here are fucking trash, right? You have 3 respawn points, but realistically you only use 2 and 3 because 1 is in bumfuck Narnia, right? Which is a common design feature in this game. Like, if you've ever played any Riftstones, right? Any Riftstone war games or anything at all, open your map, especially in the Talus Riftstone, open your map and you will understand what I'm talking about. Only 2 of these respawn points are ever viable, and one of them is just off in China somewhere. I don't know. Like, I don't know who designed these maps, but they are so fucking bad. It's crazy to me. Like, all iterations of meaningful PvP in this game devolves into body throwing into a single capture point. There's no objective changes. It's only 1 point for those 30 minutes to an hour. Alright, I mean, I guess in war games you could do up to like 15 minutes, whatever, who cares. But there's no objective change. That's it. You're fighting for that 1 point the whole time. And the thing is, right, like, the funny thing is that I feel like the final nail in the coffin, I know BDO changed their node wars so many times, like they changed the caps and all of that shit, and it got worse throughout the years, but like, I feel like the final nail in the coffin was they changed the node war fight completely, right? It went from having multiple guild bases and, you know, diplomatic chats would happen where people would form alliance temporarily for that node war into a King of the Hill type game where you would have to last hit a tower to take control of it, and you have to hold it until the timer runs out. And these towers would have like time limits to them. Some would be 15 minutes, some would be 20, some would be 45, some would be an hour, right? But the thing is, like, that King of the Hill game mode is literally Throne and Liberty's PvP in a fucking nutshell, right? And some of the war games that we're having now literally only last for 15 minutes as well. Like 15 minutes to half an hour. Like, guys, MMO players are in a fucking shambles. We don't know what we want. Because why did we quit one game just to play another whose main content is exactly the reason why we quit the previous game? We are so fucking cooked. Holy shit. Like, say what you want about BDO, guys, but that game's combat had people running in circles for tens of thousands of hours for several years. We actually downgraded. So bad. Holy fuck. Like, here with TNL, we have a decent buggy mess with so many oversights that they have to spend patch after patch introducing fixes and 50 other bugs with that patch. And these fixes have existed in games that have been released over a decade ago. Like, what are we doing, guys? Holy shit. Okay, although it is the end of the Throne and Liberty arc, you know, the little community that we've built so far in the 3 months that I've been making content, you know, I've enjoyed interacting with all you guys in the comments, you know, whether it's having discussions or arguing with some of you. It's been a great time, right? So with that being said, this isn't going to be the end of the channel, right? I do have plans to make content on other games in the future, primarily going to be MMOs. I do have my eyes on a couple like Anvil Empires, which is basically Foxhole but the medieval version, and I have some friends in Hands of Unity that are down to play it, and I'm trying to convince a couple more. So that could be fun, you know. We finally get to roleplay as medieval peasants, so it could be a great time. I am looking at other MMOs too, like Pantheon: Rise of the Fallen, which is like a super classic EverQuest type MMORPG. That has intrigued me. Like I said, I do like the community aspect of MMOs, and apparently that's like a big thing in that game. So that's something I'm looking at as well. I have also started playing Turtle WoW, which is a vanilla WoW private server with my girlfriend, just to kind of show her WoW, you know, that's something I've always wanted to do. But we're gonna do a very long play of that, you know, we're gonna take our time playing that game. I am also looking to potentially get back into BDO. I've realized that farming shitty PvE content in Throne and Liberty is no different than running around in circles for hours on end in BDO. But the difference is BDO has amazing combat, so I might jump back on that. My old guild lead actually messaged me as well, you know, asking me to come back, so BDO could be the angle. So but yeah, with that said, let me know in the comments, guys, if you have quit, if you're still playing, you know, what keeps you playing. If you've quit, why did you leave? But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Leave a like, all of that stuff. Subscribe to the channel. To everyone that followed me on twitch.tv/FaceAsmXO, I appreciate all of you, and to the people that subscribed or gifted subs as well, I appreciate you so much too, because, you know, I've only been doing this for 3 months, and like in the first month, I think I have like, what, 200 followers and like 25 subs, which is fucking crazy, you know? Like, it makes me wonder, you know, what I can do with this like a year from now, which would be great. Like, if I could make content about games for a living, fuck me, that'd be a dream come true. So thank you to everyone that supported so far, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace out.